All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The Russell Wilson era as starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos has officially come to an end. And nobody should be surprised by this. The writing was on the wall that Wilson's time in Denver would be coming to an end soon, which was illustrated last season through his rocky relationship. I don't care what anybody says; it was rocky between the relationship between Russell Wilson and Broncos head coach Sean Payton. But it's official today as the Broncos let Wilson know that they would release him at the beginning of the new league year. And honestly, it's best for all parties involved. Like I said last season, Sean Payton inherited Russell Wilson, and he was never a fan of his. He went out there skeptically, trying to make it work this past season, and it didn't work out. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. And ultimately, it was Peyton who won out in Denver. He signed that 5-year deal last year, and clearly he's not going anywhere. But honestly, like I said last year, Wilson was never the quarterback for the Broncos from the jump. And I say this because you go back to 2022. Only reason Denver made the trade with the Seattle Seahawks for Russell Wilson was due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers decided to pivot and remain with the Green Bay Packers. The Broncos brought in Nathaniel Hackett, a Packers assistant coach, to be their head coach, and of course, he was an Aaron Rodgers guy. So you bring in Wilson, a lot of unfamiliarity, if you will, between Hackett's system and him. And of course, things didn't work out for Hackett. He was fired within less than a year. And you look at Wilson, he was like a fish out of water in that system. And it only got worse, in my opinion, this past season with Sean Payton. So it's one of those where you're going to ask yourself, did Russell Wilson get exposed in Denver, both on the field and off it? I'm going to say yes, because you look at it, Russell Wilson, for all of those years at the Seattle Seahawks, he was a product of that system up there. Okay. And, you look at Sean Payton, reports are that Sean Payton kind of like watered down his system a little bit to kind of have it fit, what Russell Wilson could and could not do. But at the end of the day, it's one of those where it just did not work. And then you heard the questions about, you know, Russell's leadership or like the locker room, you name it, and it simply did not work out for him in Denver. It's one of those where clearly nobody involved envisioned it to go this way. You figure in 30 starts with the Broncos, Russell Wilson was only 11 and 19 with 42 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, while he completed just north of 63% of his passes, consistently getting booed in Denver. That's something that Russell Wilson was not accustomed to. It's one of those you figure he was almost like a folk hero, if you will, in Seattle. And again, like I talked about, the questions about his leadership in the locker room. But from Sean Payton's standpoint, and I said this going in, and a lot of people said this going in, 2023 was going to be a fact finding mission for him because he wants to see what guys are going to fit his system going forward, both offensively and defensively. And you look at it like this, it's one of those where it's bad when the Denver Broncos are willing to take a cap hit like they're about to have. You're talking about 85 million over the next 2 years. They wanted Russell Wilson. They talked to him this past season about possibly restructuring that deal. That was never going to be the case. And of course, when Wilson and his agent, balked at that, again, you knew what was happening. And again, I'm not knocking Russell Wilson for that. He wanted his money, and now he's going to get his money still from the Denver Broncos. And at the end of the day, they're going to face the cap hit for it. But it's one of those where if you're Denver, you're hitting the reset button again, and it's a costly one because aside from the cap hit aspect, They gave up a lot of picks and a lot of draft compensation to the Seattle Seahawks to try to go out there and find themselves a quarterback. Didn't work out. Of course, we saw the Broncos give up draft compensation to get Sean Payton from New Orleans, and he's going to be the guy to lead this franchise going forward, along with General Manager George Payton. But on the flip side for Russell Wilson, he's got to try to go out there and it looks like he might get a mulligan on this. We don't know, okay? But he's a 35-year-old quarterback who's going to be looking for a new NFL home this spring. I'm going to throw some teams out there: the Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings, Atlanta Falcons, or Las Vegas Raiders. In my opinion, could be fits for Wilson. You look at it, Pittsburgh needs themselves a steadying force at the quarterback position. They used a first round pick a couple of years ago on Kenny Pickett. The questions are still out about Pickett's ability. Pittsburgh has struggled mightily in recent years following the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger to consistently throw the football down the field. You look at the Steelers, they have a championship defense. You look at their run game, they're trying to get better on the offensive line. They're trying to get better at wide receiver, but they need a quarterback to bring it all together. Can Russell Wilson be that guy? Possibly. But I think the biggest thing for me with Russell Wilson potentially going to Pittsburgh is I think he needs to go there and win the locker room and show that he's one of the guys. And that's something that has hung over him, in my opinion, during his NFL career. He really didn't come across as being one of the guys in Seattle. The same thing could be said, in regards to the Denver Broncos. But I think at this stage of the game, you're talking about a 35-year-old quarterback that wants to win, wants to right the wrongs, if you will, from this past two seasons with the Denver Broncos. And I think if he were to go to Pittsburgh, I think he would need to show that he's one of the guys. The Minnesota Vikings could be interesting because are they going to bring back Kirk Cousins, or are they going to go young at the quarterback, or are they going to go with another veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson? Of course, you would have the allure of playing indoors and then also throwing the football to Justin Jefferson. That's always a big to do right there as well. Then the Atlanta Falcons. It's very interesting here because the Falcons pick eighth in next month's NFL draft. They have a new head coach in Raheem Morris, and we talked about this last year. The Falcons had everything in place with the exception of quarterback. Okay, do they want to go out there and start over at that position if they pick eighth? Do they feel that they can get themselves a franchise quarterback and go forward? Or do they feel like they can do a plug and patch with Russell Wilson for a few years? The NFC South is a very winnable division. We've seen the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this division by hovering around 500 each of the last 2 years. So if you're Atlanta, do you feel like, you know what, we're a quarterback away, or do we need to find a youngster and develop him? Only time will tell. And then also the Las Vegas Raiders. This would be very interesting because we do know that the Raiders need themselves a quarterback. They, like the Falcons, have a first year head coach in Antonio Pierce. Uh, are the Raiders going to go quarterback early, or do they feel that they can bring in a veteran? Also, just for the sake of argument, it would be very intriguing because now you'd have Russell Wilson playing the Denver Broncos two times a season in the AFC West, which would only add more intrigue to this division. You've got the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs there. You have Jim Harbaugh taking over for the Los Angeles Chargers. You've got Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos. And now, would you keep Russell Wilson in that division? I guarantee you, if nothing else, it would sell tickets, but we have to wait and see. But nonetheless, I think wherever Russell Wilson goes, he's got to show that he's one of the guys. That's going to be the biggest thing going forward, in my opinion. So I think he's going to take the time now to sit back and examine the field, if you will, which team makes the best sense for him. You look at it like this. Granted, I'm sure Russell Wilson had some say in regards to being traded to the Denver Broncos, but nonetheless, it was something where he was working with the Seattle Seahawks because clearly you might want to go someplace, but that team has to have the draft compensation to return to a Seattle. This time around, there's no third party involved for Russell Wilson. It's just he and his agent trying to figure out where the next step on his football journey is going to be. And if you're the Denver Broncos, um, this is a cloud and that's no longer hanging over your head. And I say this because Sean Payton never wanted Russell Wilson. Okay. And I don't think if it was any other quarterback that Sean Payton would have had, a la Drew Brees, I don't see him chewing out Drew Brees on the sidelines like he did Russell Wilson last year. Again, Sean Payton courted Drew Brees in free agency, and of course, the rest was history in regards to their relationship with the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton inherited Russell Wilson, was never a fan of his from the word go, and now this gives the Broncos the opportunity to go forward and build. It was one of those. It was a risk for the Broncos as far as what they gave up to get Russell Wilson. It looked initially like it was going to work, like it was going to be a slam dunk, but that was far from the case. If you're the Denver Broncos, you need some semblance of order in the room. You figure the Broncos have not made the playoffs since they won Super Bowl 50. That was in 2015. They have not had a winning record since 2016 when they went 9-7. And you figure following the retirement of Peyton Manning after Super Bowl 50, it has been a revolving door at the quarterback position, just like it's been a revolving door at the head coach position. I think now there's going to be stability at the head coach position. And I think along with that, the Broncos can now try to get some stability at the quarterback position as well. But, it's one of those where financially they're going to be hamstrung for a little bit due to the cap hits over the next couple of years with Russell Wilson's deal, which is going to make it more important for them to go out there and hit in drafting and developing their talent. So let's see where the next team that Russell Wilson will be calling home, and let's see what's next for Sean Payton's Denver Broncos as he looks to build a contender in the Rocky Mountains. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.